ready?
Got open man. DJ Moore. End zone. Touchdown. Touchdown Bears.
I am Jeff Joniak.
Blitz is on. Down he goes. Brisker.
What was it like playing for Coach Ditka?
I don't want to answer any questions like that.
Pressure coming. He's in big trouble. Down he goes. Montez Sweat.
And now, Bears Etc. brought to you by Miller Lite with the voices of the Bears, Jeff Joniak and Tom Thayer.
Well, this is one of the best weeks on the NFL calendar when we situate in downtown Indianapolis for the annual NFL Scouting Combine with Super Bowl winning Bears guard Tom Thayer. I'm Jeff Joniak. Episode 134 of the Bears Etc. podcast is brought to you by Miller Lite. NFL GMs, head coaches go through the media car wash Tuesdays at the Combine, and on the back end of his interviews scheduled today, we will hear from Bears general manager Ryan Poles on this show. Lots of interesting stuff. Ben Johnson at the podium. And Tom, really, I want to start with Ben because it's his real first introduction to the national media as the head coach of the Bears. Had not done anything since his introduction as the Bears head coach back in Chicago. I thought he handled himself terrifically, had great optimism, great insight, and he's got me real excited about 2025. How about you?
Oh, you can feel the excitement. The excitement's out the roof. The energy is palpable. And then when you think about what the combine means to either a college football player going there for the first time or an NFL head coach going there for the first time, you got to be prepared because you don't know what direction the questions are going to come from, who they're going to come from, or what you're going to be asked about. And I think Ben was as prepared as any first-time coach has ever been in my NFL lifetime. And I was excited to hear it because I don't want him thinking about answers. I don't want him trying to look for information that isn't realistic or isn't there. So I felt super confident about the decisions that Ryan Poles and his staff made by the hiring of Ben Johnson and his staff.
I was listening to one of his old teammates. I'm speaking of Ben Johnson in the coaching department. Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator in Detroit, now head coach of the New York Jets, was asked about Ben Johnson. Called him very, very smart. You hear that constantly about him. Understands defense, too, and how to attack it. That's significant as the play caller, especially how to maneuver. And that goes with things like motion and how you can create your matchups, the out-of-structure stuff, the off-schedule stuff. So that is going to be a very fun task to figure out how he's going to pull all this together to make it really interesting offensively for the Bears. And what he said about Caleb Williams, stripping everything by position, but also with Caleb stripping it down to the bare wire again, down to the studs.
He's stripping it down to the studs, and he's excited about what he can do off schedule. And those are the type of plays that I think encourage you a lot about the quarterback that you're going to start working with soon. And he kind of even made mention this is the first time that he has a quarterback with those types of qualities. And when you think of Ben Johnson, think about Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. He probably knows the defensive personnel of the Chicago Bears better than he knows the offensive personnel of the Bears. But he's going to come in here and he's going to be the offensive coach, and he's going to have to learn about the offensive personnel of the Bears. And it's kind of an interesting perspective when you become a head coach of a divisional opponent, because you spend so much time studying the infrastructure of your division, but you spend a lot of time studying the defensive personnel groupings. And now it's going to be interesting to see how he puts all the parts. And I'm glad that he brought up the fact that it's not about 5 offensive linemen. It can be 8 or 9. And that is the reality of short yardage and goal line offense and the different packages that we've seen out of Detroit over the last couple of years. And we haven't seen a team get through the season with 5 offensive linemen in quite a while. And so you need a significant package of offensive linemen to make your offense run efficiently.
The other part is because everybody has the assumption, and I've been down that road as well, that you have to hire a bunch of new bodies to create this offensive line. He goes, one guy can change an offensive line. Now, I think that won't be the case here. I think you'll need more than that, but that's quite the statement, too. You get one guy that makes everybody better. Do you agree with that?
I do, because if you bring that alpha in the building, because the alpha in the building isn't only on 17 weeks on game day, it's about what are you doing in the weight room? What attention to details are you paying in the meeting rooms? What are you doing in the commitment to come out to practice when you feel less than 100%? You need that type of personality, that type of guy that's inside the room, that's elevating the desire, the willingness, the ability of every other guy in that room. Then all of a sudden that becomes contagious. That one guy starts to attach to 2, and then that goes to 3, and then all of a sudden it's the entire room. So I do think that Ben was right on what he said, but I think that one guy can be important enough to attach himself to the other 10 or 11.
This podcast is brought to you by the official beer partner of your Chicago Bears. Tastes like Miller Time, Chicago. Go to MillerLite.com/BearsPod to find delivery options near you. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces. So let's listen in to the podium at Indianapolis at the Combine from head coach Ben Johnson of the Chicago Bears.
My condolences to the McCaskey family. Only being there for 5 weeks and Miss Virginia passing like she did. You talk about a powerful experience for your young coach like myself, just to see the level of support, respect, love come from the community and her family was overwhelming. So want to start off with that. Listen, the last 5 weeks have gone outstanding. Putting the staff together, that was priority number one. Feel really strongly about the quality of people that we brought in. Character, integrity, those were the first things we were looking for. And then great teachers, great work ethic, demanding on and off the field. I think we checked those boxes with all the coaches that we brought on board. And then as we've gotten going with the roster, evals of our current guys, the free agents coming up, as well as getting into the draft prospects here. It's been a great process. I can't speak highly enough about Ryan Poles and his staff. I've been able to sit in some of their draft evals so far, and to see how well that machine's clicking, it's just rolling on along. It's very impressive to see, and so looking forward to seeing that grow as we go through the springtime.
You only get one opportunity to make that set the precedent for Ryan for how amazing you're going to be doing player acquisition. What you told him you got to have coming out of the draft is great.
Well, we as a coaching staff, we sat down with the entire personnel department, and we went through position by position what the ideal athlete would look like for each spot. We're very flexible on both sides of the ball. Coach Allen, myself, Declan, Richard Hightower, big process. Everyone's going to be heard in terms of what we're looking for, and we very clearly outlined what the ideal look would be in terms of attributes, height, weight, speed, in terms of makeup, which is of critical importance for what we're looking for. But at the same time, if it's a good football player, we're going to make it work as a coaching staff. So there's a balance going on with that, and I think the dialogue's been very, very, very healthy so far.
How much of a change is it from the influence that you had in personnel?
Listen, everywhere's different, and this process is a little bit different than what I've been a part of. It was different in Miami. It's different when I first got to Detroit. It was different when I left Detroit. And so whatever way you go with is your way. And I feel really good about the voice that not only I have, but the rest of the coaches are going to have in terms of picking these players.
Ben, Ryan talked about your vision of establishing a foundation for Caleb. What are the steps that are going to give that you need to kind of iron out with him?
Well, the springtime, not just for Caleb, but for the entire team, is we're going to go back to the basics, and that's the fundamentals of each position. Blocking, tackling, catching the football, running after the catch, ball security. We're going to break it down to the studs and work to develop it from there. And so for Caleb, it's what are the important things about playing the quarterback position at the NFL level? It's as simple as the procedure of the huddle, breaking the huddle, using cadence, motion, shifts, all those things that can help attack a defense that we feel like can take another step here in Chicago. That'll be the starting point. And we'll look to build around him as well with the talent level and the rest of the support staff. Yeah, listen, talking with DA has been very enlightening because we share the same mindset when it comes to defensive football, which is we want to affect the passer. And there's a lot of different ways you can do that. Certainly up front, the pass rush is the primary thing you think of, but also on the back end, it's challenging the receivers and disrupting the timing. And so when we look at guys that are available, absolutely, we want to upgrade the pass rush, and we also want on the back end to be able to come up and lock down receivers as well. So it's that fine balance and marriage between the rush and coverage that we're looking to augment.
And your offensive background, when you think of a quarterback, you think of those defensive linemen. What are some of the things that you think, I don't want this defensive lineman on the other side of the line? These are the guys that I don't want to face as a quarterback. And are those kind of the guys you're looking for, and maybe most of those traits are?
Yeah, but I understand where you're coming from with that. Yeah, we want playmakers all over the roster. Doesn't matter, offense, defense, D-line, secondary, we want them all over the place. And, as an offensive guy, I look on at defensive players, and if it's an issue for me to game plan against, then absolutely, we'd love to have them on our roster as a defensive player to go after our opponents. But it's not always that easy, and it really, at the end of the day, it comes down to 11 guys doing their job. If you don't have that star power, that's okay. You can still be an effective unit. And so, we want as many playmakers and stars as we possibly can, but at the same time, we know that complementary football wins in this league. We know that 11 guys playing as one also wins in this league.
Now they have a chance to look at Gilmore's team a little bit more in depth. What are the traits that excite you the most as you start to build the offense around him?
Listen, super talented. I think Declan mentioned it when he got interviewed a few weeks ago. The out of structure, the off schedule, the creation, that's what stands out the most, because that's really the way that this league's going right now, it seems like. As much as you want to make it pure progression 1 to 2 to 3, there's just too much variety. The pass rush is coming down, and to have an athlete like Caleb extend the play and potentially find an explosive down the field, that's what gets me going a little bit. I get excited thinking about that because I haven't really been around that since I've been in the league. But I've been on the other side, and I've experienced it, and it's demoralizing when you're on the other side and you're watching that happen to your defense.
To that point, your offense was predicated on a lot of run game and play action. And the statistics don't necessarily show that you need to be a good run game to be a good play action team. I'm just curious about your philosophy in that regard.
Yeah, there is a marriage between the two, there's no doubt, but I would agree with what you just said. You don't necessarily have to be a great running team to get reaction in the play-action game. I think it all starts with what your line up front can do, what your backs do well, and you take it from there. And listen, what's so beautiful about the coaching staff that we put together is I didn't hire a bunch of my friends. I went outside of my circle on purpose because I wanted to collect a different mix of experience, of energy, ideas, and we're all going to make it come together, and it's going to be the Chicago Bears going forward. And so it can look a number of different ways. Eric Bieniemy's got a lot of experience in the gun run game and what they did in Kansas City, obviously, and Declan has a lot of success from the Sean Payton tree, and Press Taylor has a lot of success from the Chip Kelly all the way on. And so we've got a lot of library, if you will, to draw from, and we'll see it all come together once we get our hands on these guys.
What did you see in DeAndre Swift's season, his first season with the Bears? And I know you have some history with him. What potential do you think there is for him to be more effective?
Yeah, so I was with Swifty when we first drafted him in Detroit a number of years ago, and I followed his career even after he left Detroit, and think very highly of him. He's an explosive athlete. There's a number of things that he can do both in the running game and the passing game. I do think he can help ignite an offense because he's got that playmaking ability. So it'll be fun to start to work together again here this springtime with him.
Wide receiving group in Detroit, and y'all have one in Chicago. How important was it to bring somebody like Antoine Randall over to Chicago? Just off your history, how big of a role does he have?
Listen, L's a stud, and that's one of the reasons was not only will he help me out tremendously, but he's going to make this offense, he's going to make this team, he's going to make that receiver room better. He's going to leave it better than when he found it. I know that for certain. And it helps that he's coming home, too. So I'm really excited about him being able to get in the building, be around these players, because he's got a special energy and aura about him that just rubs off on everybody.
Having looked at your roster and identified his greatest needs, what does this fit coach to further identify his identity?
Yeah, so I think Ryan talked about it this morning a little bit. We feel really good about free agency and the draft and how the supply matches up with our demand. And so it's we've been able to dive into the film over the last few weeks, but now we can verify the personality, the football intelligence, and all those types of things that you wouldn't normally have known just by watching the tape. So it's just the next step in the process right now, and we're just cooking on along. You want names? Is that what you're looking for? Is it? Listen, yeah. We want a physical group, all right? It starts with that, and that's not just the offensive line. That's the entire team. DA and I have been talking about what that looks like on defense. It's going to look that way on offense. Starts in the trenches up front. We talk about finishing in a dominant position. We want to be around the football. The best football players, they finish around the ball. And so that's what you're going to see from our unit, the 5 guys that we roll into. And it's not even just going to be 5. Last few years, it ends up being 6, 7, 8, 9 guys end up playing significant number of snaps. So we've got to find those 5 best guys, but we also have to get a good bullpen, if you will, ready to go in at a moment's notice.
To that extent, you have all three interior starters up for free agency. Is it realistic to think you can flip that many offensive linemen in one free agent draft period, or how do you envision that?
Yeah, I think it's been done before, right? I mean, I think there's a number of teams that did that last year. The Panthers come to mind when they went out in free agency and got a couple top guards and really changed the dynamic of their offense, and you saw them clicking there in the second half of the season once they started to really gel. So there's no question that you can change the dynamic of a room just like that. That particular room, it does take a little bit of time for 5 guys to come together, especially if you have to deal with the attrition and the injuries, for 5 guys to be working on the same page. It's when you watch the tape and you come away with, I think I made this statement in my opening press conference that that's an area we have to get better. That doesn't necessarily mean we need 5 new starters, because all it takes is one individual to blow up a play. And so we're just identifying where we can get a little bit better, and we're going to continue to raise that floor, and we'll find the right mix of 5 to 8, 9, 10 guys.
2 more. Have the plays better, but also clock management. Obviously, you saw that on Thanksgiving. So how are you working with the quarterback and your staff to make sure that the Bears don't have the same kind of clock management issues? Yes.
Well, I'm not working with the quarterback right now, but I will be soon enough. So we already have a plan in place in terms of Harry Freed was already on staff. He's someone I've got a relationship with from going back to Miami. I think very highly of him, and I'm really looking forward to sitting down. We've already started this process. We call it the Breakfast Club. He and I go 30 minutes every day right now, and he's just I said, teach me like I'm a rookie quarterback from the start to the finish. And so we're about halfway through his program right now. And so once we get through that, we'll make a decision on where we want to go in terms of when the players get in and educating them on how we want to handle the situations that can pop up and potentially win or lose ball games for us. Declan, so great story about him. I ended up calling John Morton, who took the OC job at Detroit. He'd worked with Declan the last couple of years, and I asked him, I said, hey, how's Declan doing? Is he ready to be a coordinator? He said, Ben, listen, he's another Ben Johnson, which I think that's a good thing. I'm banking on that being a good thing. So, listen, I think he and I are a match made in heaven. He thinks very much like me. It's been awesome getting him into the building the last few weeks, and extremely detailed, extremely organized. The age does not matter. he is going to be respected by not only the players but also his fellow coaches as well. I can already see that coming into place with the coaching staff meetings that we're having right now. He's very well informed. It's just like anybody, if you can help make the people around you better, they're going to find value in you. And so that's what Declan's bringing to the table for us right now.
Thanks, guys.
Yep. Thank you.
A couple other big things that really stuck out to me, because we talk about this, you and I, all the time off the air. He wasn't interested in hiring a whole staff of his friends. And I thought,
Amen.
wow, because I saw him beforehand, Tom. He was getting ready to walk over to the podium, just exchange pleasantries. And I said, man, I'm really impressed with the type of staff you brought together, the different experiences, the older guys, the guys in their 60s to the young guys. And he goes, yeah, I'm excited about it, you know. And I said, yeah, this is something that's not small. This is a big deal. Like the type of staff you put together. And you'll hear in our interview with Ryan Poles how, you know, he gave Ben a lot of credit for picking those coaches. I mean, I'm sure there was some talk and conversation, but he picked this staff.
Picking a staff of your friends is detrimental to success, because you can't be worried about hurting feelings. You have to be making sure that these guys are brought in with the successes they had to coach the different positions that they have to be accountable for. And sometimes you have to hold them up to a certain level of expectations that you need in order to ultimately see the success that you're fighting for. And that was one of the most encouraging lines out of Ben throughout the press conference, was the fact that he didn't go out and hire friends. He went out and hired quality coaches. And that's super encouraging for the development of the players, and the players should be excited about that.
Also, looking for the type of people that you want. He talked about physicality across the board on this team. Certainly you need it in the trenches. So in my mind's eye, I close my eye. I know I have a definition of what physicality looks like. I don't know if it matches what a Tom Thayer's definition of physicality looks like, or Ben Johnson's, or Ryan Poles for that matter. But I know speed is king in this NFL, but I'm rolling it back a little bit. I'm back to the old days. I don't care how fast you are anymore. I care how physical and violent you're going to be, because if you're a smart player, you're going to play fast. And so I know, you know, you can't substitute a 4-2 guy beating you deep. I get that. But those guys are rare. I want a physical, nasty football team to watch and enjoy and wrap my arms around in the city of Chicago. And I think that's what they're heading towards.
Well, if I look at physicality from the defensive side of the football, I want sideline to sideline physicality. I want to see an offensive opponent, if he's going to make his way to out of bounds, and that defensive player has a chance to take a shot at him before he gets out of bounds, I want him to take it. I want them to be relentless in getting to the quarterback. I want them to be able to be physical enough where there's players that have concern if they're going across the middle or they're exposing themselves a little bit. I want them to be able to research the vulnerabilities of the offensive opponent they're playing, and then take advantage of that. And then when I think about physicality on the offensive side of the football, I want to say, if I have a designated point of attack and I go to the line of scrimmage and I say, okay, we're going to run the ball right here for 3 yards, that you can do it. That's the type of physicality you have to put on display. And then if you have those multiple offensive line packages that add that element of physicality to it, because you have bigger bodies up at the line of scrimmage and maybe taking advantage of what the defense is trying to do to you, then that's part of the success of the movement of the football on your offense. And physicality can be in the play action passing game as much as it could be in a physical running game. And from what we've seen out of Ben Johnson and preparing for him as a coach of an opponent, he's shown it, he's called it, he's put it on display, and we see results of it. So I'm encouraged when you use words like physicality, because that's the type of football team that we want to see. And then obviously it's got to carry over to special teams as well, because they can make some huge plays in the special teams game, either to get you in a scoring position or take your opponent out of scoring position.
You know what else to sustain physicality? Because you can all taste the tone of the day when special teams on the opening kickoff rock somebody, and you have to start at your 11-yard line on a long field, crowd's going crazy. But as the game wears on, I want the physicality that started then to continue over the course of the game so you finish. and have that other team just feel battered, weakened, and there's no way we're going to be able to ball up our fists anymore today, and we're cowering out of here. That's my mindset.
Well, I think you're talking about physicality. That's a reward to the people in the stands. Because when you talk about physicality and you see something that you're really excited about in the first quarter, imagine if you're seeing that in the fourth quarter as well, and then everything in between. Now you're talking about a packed house at Soldier Field that's rewarding the players, their effort on the football field, that can help you sometimes make your opponent look a little dysfunctional on offense. So physicality is a great reward to everybody sitting in the stands at Soldier Field. And because of the Bears travel so well, that physicality on the road that travels well is something that is a reward in opponent stadiums as well.
I know your mind works in mysterious ways, and that you can remember virtually everything that's happened in your football playing life. Do you remember a game as physical as the Bears are back in those days, and as physical as your offensive line was, that you met your match, so to speak, with a physical opponent that you remember like, wow, that was a war? Give me an example.
I remember two games. We played San Francisco 49ers in Soldier Field on Monday Night Football. We ended up winning the game 10-9. And it was one of the most physical collision games I've ever played in. I probably had the biggest long-distance hit of my career against Ronnie Lott in that game. And then another one was the Philadelphia Eagles after Buddy Ryan became the head coach, when they had Reggie White and Jerome Brown, and they had Pitts, and they had Simmons, and they had that whole defensive backfield linebacker, Seth Joyner, and the crew. That was just an unbelievable physical opponent. We won the game, but when you walked off the field, you felt the game. And that's something different, because usually when you win a game, you don't feel the game. But sometimes you win the game and you still feel the game. In those two games, specifically the 49ers on Monday Night Football and Philadelphia Eagles in Chicago, you felt them, and sometimes I still feel them.
Yeah, for savings and service, get more with Geico. Had a chance, and thankful for his time, to sit down with Ryan Poles, a part of what we call the Car Wash here at the Scouting Combine. He did many interviews here on Tuesday. So did Ben Johnson, for that matter. That's part of the course for every NFL team. But Ryan sat down with a number of folks, including us, to discuss the hiring of Ben Johnson, what's going on behind the scenes, and what the future looks like. Well, I appreciate it, but now you're an old pro here.
Yeah.
I think it's bigger than ever. Radio Row here at the Combine. I walked in and was startled, but you're used to this now, right?
Yeah, used to it. It's the old car wash, but it's fun. It's kind of a gateway into this next season in terms of acquiring new players to help us take the next step.
I like what you had to say earlier this morning with the local and national media. Momentum or things that didn't go well, doesn't matter season to season. You're starting fresh. You have to, and this is obviously a reboot. That can't get lost on everybody, right? That's a significant statement to make.
Yeah, it is. And we got to remember that, coming off a successful year or coming off a year like we just had, it's an opportunity to hit the reset button, and we got to focus on places of improvement and attack that with all of our energy, so that we can, show up next year and be as successful as we possibly can be.
And it is a heavy lift when you're trying to build a football team and then reboot. I'm talking about your job.
Yeah.
So there's no time for anything but that. Now take us behind the curtain a little bit after you can exhale a little bit. The staff's together.
Yep.
What have you learned?
Yeah. First, starting with Ben, I've talked about this, is just how thoughtful and strategic he is, and really all the decisions that he makes. Seeing him work through and talking through different, hires that he had on the staff, and hear him talk about the chemistry of the group and not just the individual. He's got really good perspective and really just a really smart football person, which is really encouraging, because we're going to have a lot of these tough decisions we got to make, and we have to be thoughtful, and it can't be about one person or any type of ego. It's got to be what's best for the organization. So it's been really fun to see him work through that, and then spending time with the staff that he's hired, and really seeing our front office and coaching staff come together to talk about how we want to move forward into the future. So we have a really good group of coaches. They're good evaluators, highly communicate at a high level, and just a lot of fun to work with.
How does it help your job when they're good evaluators? Because I've seen many coaches have not been good evaluators. They think they are, but they're not. They don't. That's not their full-time job, obviously. But to have the range of age and experience on the staff, how purposeful is that? How purposeful was that? And how important is that?
Yeah, that was very strategic, and that's where I thought Ben did a great job, is just pairing expertise with former players, with guys that bring a lot of energy, that have been around a lot of different types of players and organizations. So when you combine all of that, you have a really good group that's very knowledgeable on not only just building a football team, but coaching and developing players, which is critical for us. But that communication's got to be there. So again, we're not going to see eye to eye with everything, but you do want to kind of be within certain parameters so you feel really confident about bringing in the type of players that you think can help your football team.
You know, in anybody's walk of life, if they have a group of people they've been put together with, and there's this moment when there's an excitement and electricity and you just feel, man, this is going to be good. I got a good team of people. Have you had those moments? Can you share one? I mean, does anything like, oh my gosh, this is better than I thought it was going to be. This is going to be good.
Yeah, the one thing I can point to is when we brought the coaches into the draft room, had all of the scouts from all over the country come in for our meetings, and we went position by position and went over the criteria that they're looking for our offense and defense and special teams to perform at a high level. And I think just the back and forth, the questions that our scouts asked, the response from the coordinators, the openness between the two groups, you can really feel that energy amongst the whole unit. So I'm excited. You can feel the energy through the whole building with everybody that's here.
Yeah. Now, for scouts, they go out during the season and you're looking for your types of guys for the current staff at that moment. Is it a title shift? Is it a seismic shift in types of personnel now? And does that challenge your scouts to now try to come together and find the right types of guys?
Yeah, it depends on the position and the side of the ball. So there's a couple tweaks with different positions where, maybe physicality outweighs speed. Obviously, both front office and coach would like to have both.
Yes.
But you always get
so would the announcer.
Right. So there's always a point in player acquisition where you can't have all the traits in one bundle. So sometimes you're left picking and deciding. And that's where it helps us create clear vision of how we're going to go about and who we're going to target. So a slight adjustment. There's some schemes adjustments defensively where we're going to change some things up, where the physical criteria changes a little bit. So we'll work through that. I think there's some guys on our team that adapt really easily. Others it'll be a little bit more challenging, and we'll work through that. But the one thing I just love is that the communication has been very clear.
I say the third of the roster, the bottom of that churns over every year. A wave of one-year signings of free agents, to give you depth and plug people in that can play right away. Are we looking at a potential, like there could be a lot of new personnel on the team?
We have the opportunity to bring in quite a few players this offseason. I wouldn't say it's going to be, anything crazy. But when I look at the draft and I look at free agency, I do love the fact that our needs and the supply do match up nicely. So I think there's going to be opportunity to bring in players that can help us win early.
I mean, everybody knows and everybody feels it, and we've talked about the line of scrimmage is certainly important. But you've done this before, so the best steps to building an offensive line that can make an immediate impact, because everybody says, love to be able to draft 4 starting offensive linemen. They're going to make mistakes. How do you balance that with the need to succeed, while growing? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think it's being in lockstep with Ben and his staff. I also think it's going to be some type of combination of older players that can get up and get running fast, with some younger players that come through the draft, and maybe some guys that are in their second year that are still learning how to play at a high level. And when you combine those with good coaches, good teachers, you can still achieve some of those goals of getting up and getting running fast. But we also know that when you are putting a new scheme together, you have a new coach, new players coming in, there is going to be a process to get this thing up and get to full speed, but we're excited to go through that.
Thank you to our partners, CDW and Lenovo, who make amazing happen. Learn more at cdw.com/Lenovo. Let's talk Caleb, because it all centers around his continuing development. And I know you mentioned it's like almost a reset for him. Fundamentals, techniques, process, all that learning with a guy like Ben, how impactful do you suspect it will be, and what their relationship will grow like?
Yeah, it's going to be very impactful, and their relationship has to be strong, and their trust in each other has to be very, very high, because in order to get Caleb to where he needs to go, there needs to be a lot of truth talk in terms of what he needs to accomplish to get his game to a level that can elevate the entire team, which is going to take time, and everybody knows that.
And when you say truth talk, that's been mentioned quite a bit. What does that mean?
Just telling it how it is, like in terms of what's good enough and what's not good enough. And I think one thing we talked about at the end of the year is just like challenging everybody to elevate their game consistently, whether you're a Pro Bowler, All-Pro. Like, there's always room to get better, and I know Ben's going to challenge Caleb to take the next step, because we saw some special moments. We just got to see that consistently, but we got to attack some of the areas that he's got to improve, and I know they'll get that done.
The business of football, do you feel good about some possible extensions?
Yeah, that's another really fun part with the new staff coming in is watching tape, getting caught up, and making sure that certain players fit what we're trying to do. So we'll meet with some reps while we're here just to see if things make sense, and then we'll get back and have some good conversations and spend some time with Matt Feinstein, who's done a wonderful job making sure our cap space is in a healthy position, remain flexible, and obviously we always want to take care of our own and re-sign guys that we draft. So we'll look into that, and hopefully some of those things will work out as we go forward.
Also, I know you like challenging yourself. How have you set about doing that for 2025?
Yeah, this whole process, going through the coach search, reflecting on why we came up short this past year has been really impactful, not only for me but for our whole group, just in ways that we can improve both player acquisition and free agency and the draft, making sure that we're honed in the right areas, that guys are coming in with the right criteria to elevate our team and elevate their own game and develop. And then even, like I said, going through the coaching search, just learning so much through that process of what is necessary to coach at a high level and bring a team together. It's been a lot of fun to go through, and again, the most important piece, like, can you self-assess and be critical of yourself? And I think we've done that as a group, and I've done that as an individual to make sure we don't make repetitive mistakes and we continue to grow and get better.
Well, good luck. Good to see you, and it's going to be fun ride. Good luck with everything.
Thank you.
Tom, as always, when I do these interviews, I miss you. What are some of your takeaways when you heard that?
So I'm super excited for Ryan Poles, because Ryan Poles is the man in charge. He is running this football team from the driver's seat all the way down to the last seat on the bus. And I think when he came aboard in the first go-around with the Bears, there was already pieces that were in place that Ryan Poles didn't have a hand in. Right now, Ryan Poles, when you look at some of the evolution of his scouting staff and bringing in this coaching staff and being allowed to make these choices that he has been setting himself up for his whole career, you can almost hear it in his voice, the excitement and, his ability to sit up there and answer questions from you without needing to know the questions beforehand, but he's intelligent enough to know exactly how he's going to answer the question. So I'm super excited for him, and I wish him all the success in the world going forward, because, I don't know if you said it to Ben or Ryan, but you talked about the excitement for the announcer as well.
Yeah.
And,
Ryan.
Yeah, and I was excited, like what I heard out of Ryan, his tone of voice and the way he addressed the media.
Yeah, I saw some other interviews, and Poles indicated that some foundation steps in the process of getting Caleb up and running as a rookie were skipped, and felt that need to kind of accelerate the process. You can't skip steps, and that's what he realized. And so, teams can pour over tape and find all the weak points that maybe you didn't emphasize enough. So he feels Ben Johnson are not going to allow bad habits, are not going to allow things to regress. That's not the way he rolls. So, it's quite the admission, obviously, and he is one who does a lot of internal analysis. I appreciate the honesty, and in the name of winning as soon as possible, you still can't cut corners.
Of course not. But sometimes your hands are tied. When you're taking a quarterback the first pick in the NFL draft and then you anoint him as a starter immediately, then everything is moving forward with Caleb. Caleb doesn't have a chance to go through the growing pains and maybe suffer some setbacks during the course of the season. You have to be treated like a veteran, expected to live up to a veteran type of performance, and then see how it goes from there. And then when you have the opponent studying the vulnerabilities of your offense, sometimes you're asking Caleb to get you out of that when he doesn't have all the answers about everything. And, for one of the things that frustrated me towards the end of the season, I thought they were neglectful on using Cole Kmet as a really valuable tight end weapon. And I think when a guy like Ben Johnson comes aboard and studies a little bit about what a guy like that is capable of being, that could be a quarterback's best friend. And he knows what DeAndre Swift is about. He uses the play action pass as well as any coach in the league. So I do think there's solutions to some of those answers that he's going to be able to figure out as he watches tape with the rest of his coaching staff.
It sounds like they have clear vision here on what they're looking for by position. So that'll help in free agency and then the draft. And, a lot of people are looking at free agency saying, well, it's not a great free agent, but in terms of what's available. However, they do match up with Bears' needs and wants, both the draft and free agency in terms of availability. And obviously, they're not shying away from it. Everybody knows the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball will get some serious attention.
Well, Jeff, the cupboards aren't bare. This isn't looking, at a roster that you're trying to overhaul from top to bottom. You got as good as a defensive backfield as there is in the division and some of the better in the league. You have great linebacker play. Like I said, I think you have good tight ends. I think you have good running backs. I think you have good wide receivers. So if you can take some of the assets that you have available to you, both money and free agency in the draft, and you want to start developing that infrastructure, the offense and defensive line that can last 8 to 10 years, you have access to it right now, as soon as free agency opens and then as soon as the draft takes place. So this is not a cupboards are bare type of a roster. This is how can we get the pieces to put in place that, maybe there's a guy playing a couple weeks faster than you thought he would be playing. But then all of a sudden 2 months down the road, he's developing into the veteran that you thought he would become. And then, behind the scenes, you and I have talked about a couple of second-year players that if they take a big step forward, it's really going to add more to last year's draft than what's already been added.
And you're talking about Karan Amagaji and Austin Booker, both sides of the ball.
Right. Karan Amagaji, if he takes a starter step and all of a sudden he is in there competing as one of the starting offensive linemen, you're talking about a guy that's played very little to a guy that's going to play a lot. And if he proves to the coaches that he can be a starter, that's a tremendous asset that you got in last year's draft. And then if you look at Austin Booker, I'm not asking for you to come in here and play 65 snaps a game. I'm asking you to come in here and play 35 snaps a game and an extremely high level, both run stopping, rushing the passer, and being the athlete that you've already put on display. If those two guys that are contributors from last year's draft choice, you're talking about a significant upgrade in the overall draft class of last year.
For savings and service, get more with Geico. And this podcast is brought to you by the official beer partner of your Chicago Bears. Tastes like Miller Time Chicago. Go to MillerLite.com/BearsPod to find delivery options near you. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces. So the executive director of football technology is Mike Santarelli, and he has a big role in having everything ready for the new coaching staff to hit the ground running. And Ryan Poles made a point of that in his news conference with the media from all over the NFL in Chicago because that's a big deal. He wants that to be known as world class. And Mike does a ton of work getting the computers set up. Coaches all have different wants and needs, and some are more educated in the technology, and some are not. So you got to bridge that gap, and apparently it went real smooth for the new coaching staff. And that was officially announced, obviously, last week, but they've been in the building. So I've heard a lot of great things about that. And secondly, Matt Feinstein becomes the Vice President of Football Administration. I know Ryan's been very fond of Matt and what he's done to help him understand the salary cap. And as we sit here right now with the expansion of the salary cap per team and the departure now of DeMarcus Walker and the departure of Gerald Everett, the Bears have the fourth most cap space available. That's to re-sign, to go into free agency, to take some big swings if they so desire, or to populate the roster with bodies that are no longer going to fit what the new schemes are going to call for. And then you have all these draft picks. So they're well positioned. And I gotta give a tip of the cap to those two gentlemen.
Oh, they
staffs,
deserve it.
And their staff.
Mike and Matt both. They both deserve a pat on the back because their role and their importance in the overall success of the entirety of a roster and how they fit inside the building. Yeah, they're not going to stand up there and be doing interviews at podiums, but their value to a football team is as much as anybody that can stand at a podium. So I'm super excited for both of them, and I know that they're professionals. And it doesn't surprise me that things are so professionally done by the two of them that they're in a good position on both of their what they're both responsible for.
A couple of observations since you're not on X, you're not on Twitter. All these, number one, I've been coming here for 30 years almost, even before I was involved with the NFL, and it's stunning what the Radio Row now, even this year, has probably grown by another 30-40%. I walked in today, and then our good friend Pete Bursich from the Vikings Radio Network and the Chicago area native and a Golden Domer, he was there. We just cannot believe how many people are broadcasting live on their version of Radio Row here, and it's just exploded. And so you're seeing videos from all over the NFL. So I caught one at Pete Carroll on a plane ride with his former general manager in Seattle, and the thinking is they spent like an hour talking, whispering, and they're trying to get Geno Smith over in Vegas. Then you see shots of it's crazy what this has become, like Rumor City, and it's video. Everybody's getting videotaped and wonder what they're talking, who they talking to, what agent. Oh, that must mean this is going to happen. Oh, they're trying to trade for Myles Garrett. Oh, my gosh. If you love football and you love the offseason, you're loving this.
Yeah, I wish someone turned the camera around and walked back to coach and look at the poor players that are sitting back there, 6'5", 305 pounds, sitting in the middle seat and coach.
So you saw that video?
No, I didn't. I flew on that plane, Jeff.
Yeah,
I know that player plane.
I'm talking about, on the flight to, you're saying the flight to Indy, they're not giving you first class ticket.
Right. That's what I'm saying. They got those coaches that are sitting up there in first class, and they're sharing stories and strategies and stuff. That's why I said I wish someone turned the camera around, walk back into coach, and watching the poor kid that's flying in from Seattle, Washington, that's 6'5", 310 pounds, sitting in the center seat and coach.
Also, I saw a quote that you'll like. It's from the Philadelphia Eagles general manager, Howie Roseman. He's done a great job. At the podium today, he says, and I quote, "I have an unhealthy obsession with offensive and defensive linemen. He simply can't have enough." And I think we both subscribe to that same theory. And Ryan was asked a question by one of the Chicago media members, and he was, he made an assumption. Well, you have the 10th pick, and you've got all this money in free agency. So if you spend money on a pass rusher in free agency, doesn't mean you're not going to get one at the 10th pick. And Ryan corrected him. Because, and rightly so, you can never have enough. You can never have enough. Look at what happened in the Super Bowl. You can never have enough pass rushers.
Right. Well,
or defensive linemen.
On that conversation of offense and defensive line, and I know we probably don't have time to do it because I would go off on a rant that maybe even not be suitable for a podcast, is this whole deal with the tush push.
Okay.
And the fact that there's a team out there that's saying they should outlaw it. it's insulting to me as an offensive lineman, because offensive linemen, they win by leverage. The tush push is a play that is leveraged one. And in my 40 years around the Chicago Bears, we have probably had two centers that would be good enough to run the tush push, and that'd probably be Jay and Olin. And it's not simply done.
Right.
And if it was simply done, everybody would be doing it. And then for a team to go out there and be so offended that they want to go out there and say, we want to outlaw it. That's offensive.
And Nick Sirianni said as much. He goes, we spent a lot of time working on that play.
It's not an easy play for anybody that thinks that it's just a matter of lining guys. So, Jeff, I think we were playing the Dallas Cowboys back in 1985. And William Perry was in the backfield. Walter Payton was stuck at the goal line. William Perry picked him up and dragged him across the goal line. They threw a flag because that used to be called illegal advancement.
Yeah. And
then they took that rule out of it, and that's why you can have this play that they have designed it now. And I just think that, when somebody can't defense a certain successful play, then they go to change the rules. And it's just got my blood going today. You can take it out of this podcast, but I just want my feelings to be known.
I know. I respect it, and I'm not taking it out because what's the old saying in the NFL? You run it until somebody stops it. That was the Lombardi sweep. It was the Dallas Cowboys. They had a play that they kept running it. I mean, hey. A coaching staff for the Chicago Bears ran power O on the first snap of every offensive game plan, and we're going to do it till you stop it.
Right.
I mean, that's the way it works.
Right. And that's the thing about it is sometimes success is in simplicity. Mm-hmm. And if you're just a more powerful line of scrimmage than your opponent and you can run that same play repeatedly, then do it until they figure out a way to stop you. So
I guess the only way that it would become a red flag if there were repeated injuries or a serious injury developed, how that would be taken. It wouldn't be taken in a great way.
It's a minimal collision. Its offensive line and defensive line are probably 6 inches apart. It's who can get lower and who can get off the ball more powerfully. That's what it's about. It's not when you're having a running back that's running 15 yards into an oncoming linebacker. That's not the case.
Well, all I got to say is after listening to everybody here, and I'm going to be here the rest of the week, you get more and more excited about what shape the 2025 Bears are going to take. Who they'll add. They want playmakers everywhere. And Ben Johnson said as much. You can't have enough playmakers. And that's the way head coaches look at things. Scouts are on the march. They're looking for those playmakers. For savings and service, get more with Geico. You got any final thoughts before you were ready to play today. If this was a game day, you would be ready to go. You came out ready.
No, it's more combine. Because I know how excited I was to go to the combines, and I know what the performance that I wanted to put out there. When you look at the guys like Dave Remington and Jimbo Covert and Bruce Matthews and Don Mosbar and just the great offensive linemen that were a part of my combine, I wanted to live up to those guys. And so the combine is still exciting for me. And one thing about this Bears offense is we're going to have to be prepared for the unexpected.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think the mind and the creativity, and Ben talked about it, how he and his brother used to draw plays when they were little kids, and no play is unusable. And because you don't know if is Caleb stumbling or is that part of the design?
Right.
Is Darnell Wright going to pull out to his left and throw a pass or throw a block? I mean, there's so many exciting elements to what the future of this offense could be. It's going to be fun to watch.
Well, I also like what he said about the different influences on the coaches. Declan Doyle has been with Sean Payton. You've got, and others on the staff. You got Ben. You've got the influence now on the defensive side of the ball of Dennis Allen. It's going to be, whatever happens, it's going to be a blend of something, and it's going to be the Bears offense. It's not going to be a replica of Detroit, it's going to be a Bears offense, and it could be quite unique.
And I love the ex-players that are a part of the staff.
Too.
I do. They've all have a great reputation, and they deserve to be here, and they've earned their stripes.
Tom, I'll tell you that the guy who's making I asked somebody, hey, have you spent any time with Antoine Randall, oh man, he is juiced up. He's got a lot of charisma in that building. Ex-player, quarterback, wide receiver in the NFL, college quarterback. I'm excited about Antoine Randall and how he coaches. He's a Chicago guy, so it's in his blood. I love that. I think
Ben only referred to him at the podium as L.
L, yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. All right, well, you're T squared, so I'm going to wrap up with this. And we appreciate it for savings and service. Get more with Geico, the sponsor of the Bears Etc. podcast, is brought to you by Miller Lite. For Tom Thayer, I'm Jeff Joniak. Thanks for listening, everybody. Please subscribe now on the Chicago Bears official app, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Bear down, everybody.